Thank you very much for staying with us. Now let's begin with some developments in the polity. The federal government says it has taken decisive actions to address critical challenges confronting Nigeria's power sector with a gradual migration from the electricity subsidy regime. The government further disclosed that a total amount of about 1.4 trillion naira subsidy burden has been taken off government from the 15% increase in tariff to stop subsidizing Band A customers, which may be redirected to develop other sectors of the economy. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu made these clarifications at a ministerial briefing in Abuja to spotlight the activities of governments. This press conference, organized by the Ministry of Information and National Orientation, spotlights Nigeria's power sector, its challenges and activities of government so far to strengthening the sector and create a more investor-friendly environment.
It requires money for us to enhance these segments. It requires money to replace deteriorating equipment and gadgets, to reconduct, to erect new towers, and to even establish new plants, to repair the pipelines, to install boosters and compressors for adequate pressure. The monies are not coming because of lack of liquidity. Investors are not coming because they could not see a line of sight of recovery of their investments. So decentralization is a major issue and we are achieving it. The consumer protection issue, we have said it that service level agreement is a covenant. If we say we are giving you 20 hours for paying 225 naira per kilowatt hour, that 20 hours must not be less than 20 hours. If it is less than 20 hours, there must be sanctions. There must be consequence management. So the first phase that we are going through is a pilot phase and is a proof of concept to drive the discourse investment in infrastructure. Once they know they are making money from this Band A tariff increase, they will be fast to improve infrastructure in other bands and migrate them to Band A, and they will make more money and the industry will be sustained. It's also to drive or accelerate migration of customers to premium bands within a very short period. It's an incentive for them to migrate Band B, Band C to Band A.
President Bola Tinubu is reassuring Nigerians that the country's economy is at a turning point, but will require the steadfast support of the private sector for sustained growth and prosperity. The president said this during Iftar on Thursday in Abuja with members of the Nigerian business community, where he expressed gratitude for their support and pledged to engage with them more frequently. State House correspondent Femi Akode reports.
The Ramadan Iftar has been another opportunity for President Tinubu to meet critical stakeholders in various sectors of the country. This time he's breaking fast with the organized private sector, a group whose support he considers to be tremendously valuable to ensure sustained growth and prosperity in the country. But the president insists that he cannot afford to underperform, given the trust placed in him by the electorate.
Nigeria is a self-believer and can always deliver on its own. Our first name is Spirit, our last name is Kandu. Got to go. We have to do it. And that's why you are here in this room. I drag the time, wanting to listen, to hear you out. We'll call again so that we can embrace the reason. You want to share with your president. You voluntarily elected me. I campaigned for it. I got it. I have no excuse but perform.
The people here who have come to wine and dine with President Tinubu are industrialists, bank executives, manufacturers, and entrepreneurs. They assured the president of support from the organized private sector and also acknowledged the sincere efforts made by the president and his team to revamp the economy and enhance the ease of doing business.
We know the journey is not going to be smooth initially, but given the way you're handling it, we know we'll get to the promised land. We love your courage. We love your boldness. We admire your decisiveness. And these are very critical in transforming a business as in transforming a country. We interact with you, and we know you are extremely passionate and committed about taking Nigeria to the promised land.
What you've done is to show statesmanship. You are thinking of Nigeria, not of Nigeria of today, but Nigeria also of the future. And we thank you, Mr. President, for this. I have to report to you that the ease of doing business is coming back gradually.
Nigerians are very intelligent people. If you leave them, they do what they like. And that's what you notice. If you hold them, show them the way, they do the right things. So I thank you for what you're doing. And I want to say on behalf of all of us, we are ready because we have seen light at the end of the tunnel.
This kind of feedback might be a soothing balm for President Tinubu as he works to turn the tides of economic hardship towards the path of steady growth and prosperity. The president is always quick to admit that he needs the support of everyone because he cannot afford to fail Nigerians. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
Let's turn to Rivers State, where Governor Fubara says he will continue to defend his administration against his political opponent. Governor Fubara reacted to the controversy generated by his recent comments on the crisis at the flag-off ceremony for construction of the Port Harcourt International Spare Parts Market. Details in this report.
Governor Ngelale Fubara has not been as vocal as some persons expect him to be on the political crisis in the state. But in a rare display of public defiance, the governor promised to surprise members of the opposing camp who take his disposition for weakness.
Sir, Ngelale Fubara.
The opposition has been up in arms since then, describing his comments as a call to anarchy. Hitting back with even further threats, Governor Fubara says he is not moved by their reaction.
You can see how restless they've been. Since I made one small statement yesterday, people will continue to make them restless. They won't know where we're coming from. We'll also hit them the way we hit them that day. So please, for those of you that are worried this morning when you saw those things flying, go and rest. Nothing is happening.
The governor said plots to weaken his hold on the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State through the tenure extension of the Executive Council would fail.
We had a meeting and we agreed that not just in Rivers State but all the state affected, that the A schools should be extended for 3 months. This extension is not bringing in new names. The extension also did not say you're working without the authority of the governor. So for those lists you saw and those ones altered, I can assure you it's not going to stand. Thank you!
The project is for the construction of 10,000 shops, shopping complexes, automobile workshops, warehouses, banking and hotel facilities, amongst others, all to be completed within 36 months.
Let's take a short break, and when we return, it's the time to speak with our guest of the day, Ajuri Ngelale, Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. Tonight, we're discussing the newly signed student loan bill. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Much for staying with politics tonight. President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday signed the Student Loans Reenactment Bill into law. The new legislation repeals the previous Student Loans Act of 2023 and reenacts the Student Loans Bill from 2004. The executive bill establishes the Nigerian Education Loan Fund as a corporate body tasked with receiving, managing, and investing funds to private loans to Nigerians pursuing higher education, vocational training, and skills acquisition programs. Tonight, let's speak with Senior Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngelale, as it gives us more insights into this reworked bill. Good evening to you, Ajuri. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you.
Good evening to you, my sister, and good evening to all of our viewers here at home and around the world.
Right, so this is good news, which serves as one of the fulfillment of the President's promises to revitalize education. What does this mean for indigent Nigerian students?
You know, look, the President is taking a multifaceted approach to alleviating the economic burdens that have been placed on Nigerian families across the country over the last several months. A major one is obviously what His Excellency Mr. President campaigned around the country on, which was the provision of a new national student loan program. That promise was fulfilled, as you rightly mentioned earlier this week, as the President signed the amendment bill of the Access to Higher Education Act into law. I think the first point to mention is that with the amended legislation that has now been signed into effect by Mr. President. Effectively, what the President has done is to expand the scope of beneficiaries across the country. Initially, the first iteration of the Act essentially dealt only with tuition, particularly in traditional four-year university education programs, law, agric, science, medicine, and the like. Now, the President is essentially, with this amendment, has now widened the scope to include vocational technical education, skills acquisition, facilitation, and other critical aspects of our economy that have to do with really the blue-collar segment of the economic sphere. We want to ensure that young Nigerians who are able-bodied, who have very skilled hands with respect to carpentry, manufacturing, plumbing, and many other trades that are currently present in the economic space in the country, that we're able to provide them with world-class training and skills acquisition so that they can participate very directly in the inclusive economy that Mr. President is building for Nigerians into future generations. The President is focused also with this amendment bill on ensuring that the encumbrances that had long been present with respect to access to education for Nigerian families and Nigerian students are removed, especially having to do with thresholds that were placed in the first iteration of the Act on certain income levels that would basically be removed from the pool of beneficiaries of the student loan program. So specifically speaking, the first iteration of the Act essentially said that any household of more than 500,000 naira annually, not monthly, breaking down to less than 45,000 naira a month, that any child from such a household that is above that threshold of 45,000 naira monthly income would essentially be barred from participating and benefiting from the student loan program. We removed the income threshold requirement to ensure that all classes of Nigerian families are able to send their children to trade schools and universities as part of this program. Secondly, we removed the guarantor requirement, which essentially stipulated within the first iteration of the act that any beneficiary would have to track down specific sets of individuals who would basically serve as guarantors on the loans that they would be obtaining from the Nigeria Education Loans Fund, the NEL Fund. We have removed that requirement as to ensure that we open up the space and we don't subject our young people to weeks and months and potentially years of looking for contacts and connections and these individuals who will stand as guarantors. We want to open up the space for them with that. So removing the income threshold, removing the guarantor component mandate were very strategic amendments that featured in the amended act that Mr. President has now signed into law, really opening up the space for Nigerian families across the country. In addition, the President also saw to the introduction of a new justice and fairness provision, which essentially stipulates that within every financial year, that this fund will be in operation. And again, this is going to be running in perpetuity. This is not timed to 2 years or 5 years or 10 years or even 20 years. This is a new federal program that will be present into the foreseeable future. He essentially mandated that within every financial year that there is a clear calculation and guarantee that every single part of this country, all local government areas of the Federation, all states of the Federation, cutting across all ethnic groups, all sexes, all religious affiliations, and all of the various kind of national points of difference, that they are factored into the calculation as to the spread of this loan program. We don't want a situation where there's any type of institutional skew favoring one ethnicity, favoring one religion, or favoring any gender over the others. And also, again, this deals with also the physically challenged members of the society, of at least the physically disadvantaged members of our youth population as well. We want to make sure that everybody's protected, that there's an equitable spread of participation in the new National Student Loan Program. So that provision is there, and it is by law, in full respect for federal character principle, which is obviously a priority of President Bola Tinubu's administration now and moving into the future. In addition to that, the President also ensured that there are very clear legal powers and regulatory guidances that have been attached to the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, the NEL Fund, essentially giving it the legal authority to sue and be sued in its own name, giving it the legal authority to be able to initiate recovery proceedings against any beneficiary who has abused the process or in any way attempted to engage in sharp practices with respect to their obligation of successfully taking out the loan and then successfully paying the loan back. We want to ensure that with the new stipulations in the amended bill, that the President is saying, look, we want to assist Nigerian families. We want to empower our young people to get an education that will ultimately remove them and their generations from, the jaws and teeth of poverty. But in so doing, we are also demanding that our young people act with integrity, that they act in the best interest of not just themselves, but in the best interest of all other young people that ultimately will be utilizing this important program for their own self-actualization. And we have put in place in this amendment act essentially a few stipulations that deal with that. One is that there is a mandate now for every beneficiary to pay back to begin the repayment process of the loan that they had obtained within 2 years following the conclusion of their participation in the National Youth Service Corps scheme. That's one part of it. But because Mr. President understands that there is a possibility that our young people may not have found either formal engagement in an existing enterprise or may not have engaged in any entrepreneurial activity that would see to some sort of an inflow of resource that they would use to obviously maintain themselves. He has also put in an additional stipulation that says if they have not found work within the 2-year within that 2-year period beyond which there would be a recovery proceedings that would be enforced by NELFund, that they can now obtain a sworn affidavit in court, essentially swearing on oath that they have not been able to, find an income within that time, find employment and engagement within that time. And on the basis of that, we can now extend the period of enforcement that NELFund would obviously conduct, its recovery proceedings within. So that's one part of it. But we have also said that even as we envisage the potential difficulty that our young borrower would face potentially in finding a job immediately after leaving school, we've also ensured that there's a mandate in a legal provision that protects the NELFund with respect to any violation on the part of a young borrower who has borrowed money and has lied or perjured themselves by essentially giving a false account on oath in any sworn affidavit that they provide, seeking an extension of the repayment period. Then essentially what would happen is they would now be liable to a felony, which obviously deals with a minimum of 3 years in prison and several other fine possibilities and the like. So we are on the one hand being considerate and compassionate. On the other hand, we are ensuring that there is a red line beyond which there would be no excuses or conditions allowed, and that has to do with any type of fraud, any type of illegitimate action on the part of any young borrower. But we have full confidence in young Nigerians. We believe that they are going to key into this program in a way that is integrous, in a way that is reflective of who we are as a people, and we are very much believing that with the expansion of the pool of beneficiation that the president has enacted with this amendment act, and with the new ability of our young people to not just get help with their tuition, but also now, by virtue of this amendment, receive help to, for example, pay for their hostel, pay for where they're living, to have an upkeep allowance for feeding. We have now created a dual structure where on the one hand we pay the tuition directly to the institution, and on the other hand we have a direct provision to the student borrower for, like I said, the provision of where they are living and for their living expenses, after which of course they would pay back all of these resources to the NELFund according to the contract that they've entered into on the basis of the new legal authorities that Mr. President has given to the NELFund by virtue of this amended act. You take all of that together and you'll recognize that not only was the first iteration, of course, fundamentally flawed in some ways, but that the president took a very careful review of the initial act and dealt decisively with every aspect of shortcoming that was found in the initial act, with very, very comprehensive solutions signed into law by His Excellency Mr. President just a few days ago.
All right, quite detailed. But how do you react to the issues raised around reduced accountability, meaning shifting from a committee-led administration to a corporate structure? People say this may lead to reduced oversight and accountability, raising concerns about the proper management of funds and resources. How do you react to that?
I'm sorry, my dear sister, the very first part of your question, I didn't get to hear it. Can you repeat that, please?
All right, so there are those who have raised concerns about reduced accountability. For them, shifting from a committee-led administration to a corporate structure may lead to reduced oversight and accountability issues. They're raising concerns about the proper management of funds and resources. So how do you react to this?
Well, it is always going to be on the table of conversation in the country. When you have a large pool of funds being administered for almost any purpose, there will be questions about accountability given, our long history with maladministration and misappropriation. So that's not a surprise. But it is our job to ensure that Nigerians fully understand the difference between how President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is conducting the affairs of the nation and how it had been conducted in the past by previous leaders. With respect to this program, as part of the amendment bill, what Mr. President has essentially achieved is a new layering of governance framework within the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, institution as an entity, ensuring that we no longer have any type of, the first iteration of the Act did not provide any very clear specificity around how the administration of the NEL Fund would work, aside from the fact that there was an executive secretary who was answerable to the Central Bank of Nigeria or the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now we have a very clear governance structure. In fact, just this evening, Mr. President we announced the approval of the appointment of a new management fund for the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, which retained the former executive secretary of the fund, Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, but he is coming back in the new role, effectively as the managing director and chief executive officer within the new governance framework that also has created two executive directors that will support the operations of the fund, being the executive director of finance and administration and the executive director of operations, two positions of which were not present in the first iteration of the Act, have now been appointed this evening. In addition to that, the President has created a new governing board that will oversee the day-to-day operation and management of the NEL Fund. That board will be composed and announced in due course, but there is another a layer of accountability over which the day-to-day management will be supervised. But the President has also said that in addition to, by virtue of the Amendment Act, in addition to creating these new layers of governance and supervision, what he's also done is he has also created the legislative backing for the provision and operation of a technological backbone that would essentially ensure that every borrower is not simply applying in some sort of manual fashion that wouldn't necessarily be easy to track and supervise, but is now, mandated effectively by the amended Act to engage in a technological back process that would see to the involvement of the NIMC, that would involve, their NIN numbers, that would involve their BVNs, that would essentially track the mobilization of funds from the source accounts to the beneficiary accounts in terms of the aspect of the loan that would deal with the living expenses of the student that is being paid directly to the student. We want to be able to track those resources in such a way that there is full accountability for that, and that there isn't any middleman, there isn't any government funded consultant handling some of these very critical processes. On the other hand, the President is also ensuring that we have we are not putting the tuition funds in the hands of our students, hoping that they're going to do the right thing. It can be tempting when you get into the millions of naira for a child from a household that has not necessarily, had a lot of, millions of naira flowing into the hands of individuals. You don't want to tempt people to do the wrong thing, right? So we also ensure that we pay the large-scale funding directly to the institution from the borrower as well. So there are a lot of layers, whether it's the governance framework of the NEL Fund itself and the new legal authorities that we have empowered them with, or it is the fact that we are paying the smaller amounts of money directly to the borrower through a technological process that can be tracked, and then of course the fact that we're paying the institutions themselves the large-scale funding that deals with tuition. We want to ensure that there's accountability. And again, the last point I would make on the accountability question, which is very fundamental, is the fact that within this legislation, we have also ensured that there is a place for university administrators, or in the case of vocational technical education centers and skills acquisition centers, that there is a point of sign-off, right? We don't want a situation where we have borrowers who have no intention of completing a law degree or completing a medicine degree or even going through a program that deals with, automobile manufacturing, for example, in a vocational technical center. We don't want a situation where people see this as an opportunity to just access funds that they can take quickly with no intention of paying back and no intention of upgrading their skills. So what we've done is to also add a feature that would ensure that at every needed time interval, so whether it's a semester or by term and the like, that we have a continuous sign-off from the officials who are employed by these institutions to, essentially verify and validate that our young people that are taking out funds to be a part of these institutions, to go through these institutions, are actually going through the programs. And again, it's not just tied to attendance. We're not just saying if you show up at school, it's good enough. No. What we are saying is that you first of all have to show up and be passing your classes, but there is a requirement in terms of academic eligibility. If you are not on course to graduate from the accredited institution that you are borrowing through, then you will not be able to access your loan facility for the next term or for the next semester or for the next time interval that's involved. So these are the various levels of accountability that Mr. President, in his deep thinking manner, has put in place through this timely amendment of the Access to Higher Education Act.
Fantastic. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about other adjustments to this bill. You're watching Politics Tonight. We'll go on a break, and I'll be right back. Please stay with us.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
Ramadan, the 9th month in Islamic calendar, is here again. This is a wonderful time to learn more about Islam and give to the cause of Allah. It's also a time when extra emphasis is on charity and good neighborliness. From the first day to the last day of Ramadan, join us on TVC from 3 to 6 a.m. every day for Ramadan Kareem, recitation of verses in the Quran, tafsir by great Islamic scholars. Ask the Sheikh for clarity on Ramadan and Islam. What's more, you can learn and win great prizes on the Ramadan quiz segment, all spiced up with soul-stirring nasheed.
Asking for a sign from you, 'cause I'm so broke inside.
Ramadan Kareem on TVC from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. every day in Ramadan. To participate, call or visit our marketing department, TVC Communications Limited, 1 Continental Way, off CMD Road, Ikosi K2, Lagos. Telephone 0708 066 8003 or 0708 066 8004. You can also log on to www.tvccommunications.tv.
Welcome back to Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us. I've been speaking to the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngelale. Mr. Ngelale, thank you so much for staying with us on the program. Now, let's change lanes to electricity tariff. The federal government announced the increase of electricity tariff from 66 naira to 225 naira per kilowatt. I mean, this is a whopping 300% increase. What informed this figure?
Well, it's certainly worth noting that we have been running an electricity an electric power subsidy effectively in this country since the 2013 privatization of the power sector that has run into tens of trillions of naira, but has resulted in almost no development effectively of the Nigerian power sector for a myriad of reasons. First of all, we have a power privatization exercise in 2013 that essentially gave birth to distribution companies, privatized distribution companies, privatized power generation companies that were handed out in several instances, in too many instances, to people who did not have either the technical capacity or the financial capacity to make the investments that were envisaged by the privatization exercise that would upgrade the infrastructure within those privatized companies in such a way that obviously electric power production and distribution would essentially transform for the better, improve, essentially. But because of the faultiness of that exercise, that is not what has happened. So essentially what had happened was the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading Company, which is an arm of government that was created by that process, essentially bears the full liabilities within the sector to avoid any type of shutdown in the sector. So what happens is, because for example, power distribution companies that are responsible for, and I'm going to get into the issue of the increased tariff in a moment, but I need to give the background. Because the distribution companies effectively did not have the capital to invest in the infrastructure they needed to invest in, not just metering, but in terms of the injection substations and the various infrastructural requirements that they needed to invest in, the funds weren't there. Effectively, what it meant was we had power generation companies that had been privatized that have to pay, hundreds of millions of dollars for example, gas supply, right? To generate the power, to produce the power, for onward transmission to these distribution companies who are not in a position because of lack of investment to offtake the power and distribute it into the homes and businesses of Nigerians. So you have stranded power as a result. And now for generation companies to stay alive, because distribution companies cannot receive the power and effectively pay for the power from the generation companies, you have government through the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company, NBET, stepping in to pay hundreds of billions of naira annually into the trillions, right? Paying for power that ultimately does not even go into the homes and businesses of Nigerians. That is how you get trillions of naira over the last decade or so that have been expended on power that is not improving and power that is not getting into the homes and businesses of Nigerians. So you're paying for nothing. That is essentially the subsidization regime that we've been running. That's unproductive and unhelpful. The president looks at this and he says, enough of this nonsense. We're not going to do this anymore. We're going to formalize and regularize the electric power supply industry in such a way that in a way that is compassionate to the Nigerian masses in view of obviously economic hardship in the land, by selectively targeting the user base of the base of users that falls within what we call the Band A group of consumers that are mostly industrial consumers for the most part. These are people who are running factories and industries who are enjoying 20 or more hours per day of light across the country. These are the Band A consumers that are being affected by this multiplication essentially of the tariff per kilowatt hour. Now, you've rightly cited that there has been a times 100%, 200% plus increase in the tariff for these Band A consumers. But it's critical to mention the fact that right now, if you have 225 naira per kilowatt hour, right, which is the new tariff that is only being applied to Band A users. Again, any Nigerian who is not benefiting from 20 or more hours on average per day of electric power supply to their homes or businesses are not affected at all by this tariff increase. Only these mostly industrial users who are benefiting from the light, who now have to pay the appropriate price for the light that's globally competitive. What we are now saying is that if you look at the 225 naira per kilowatt hour that we are currently charging, this select group of users who are benefiting from all of this 20 hours plus light, and you compare that to the 650 to 700 naira per kilowatt hour that is currently being paid by industrial users for diesel power generated light in their factories, you would know that most of the industrial users that form this Band A that is being impacted by this tariff increase are actually finding themselves saving a lot of money because they recognize that the alternative is diesel power generation, by which you have 650 to 750 naira per kilowatt hour based on the current price of diesel. So this is ultimately the cost savings that we are bringing to our industrial users, who mostly form the Band A of consumers that are being affected by this tariff increase. Again, anybody outside of Band A, that means if you're experiencing even 16 hours of light per day in your home or business, you are not affected by this tariff increase. It is only for Band A, 20 hours to 24 hours per day of light on average that is being affected by this tariff increase, which equates to 15% of the electricity consuming population in the country, mostly industrial users. We really want to emphasize that because the president has been very clear that he is going to be compassionate with respect to these reforms that need to take place. He's going to target them and ensure that it is given to those who can afford it, who, if they were operating industries in the UK and the US or any other country in the world, even South Africa and neighboring Ghana, for example, they would be paying the appropriate price for their electricity that they are using. We are saying that Nigeria is no less of a country, and they should pay the same rate.
Right, because the question many Nigerians are asking is what changed? Yes, the Minister of Power has been saying the subsidy regime on power can no longer be sustained. However, President Tinubu maintained that he will keep this subsidy running. So the question has been, what changed?
Well, certainly, the president is someone who's going to factor in the economic realities in the country, right? Obviously, taking into clear cognizance the economic crisis that he ran into with respect to the well-reputed high-level malfeasance that took place within the Central Bank of Nigeria, the limited foreign reserves available, and obviously the volatility with respect to the Nigerian naira that we saw over the first 8 to 9 months of our administration. The president knew that when you have rising energy costs, rising food costs, you have inflation rising, and some of the other challenges that we had inherited in view of obviously the removal of the fuel subsidy, the unification of the foreign exchange rate market, and many of the other even international factors that have nothing to do with the Nigerian public sector or any moves our leadership has made. You put all that together, the president looked at it and said, look, this is clearly not the time to make any type of adjustment to the tariff regime in such a way that we would add any type of burden to Nigerian industrial users, for example. But obviously we have seen very clear stability being restored to the value of the currency. We are seeing all of the trends going in the right direction with respect to the turnaround of the economy. And look, you heard it. In fact, in the first part of this program, you aired the excerpt from yesterday's meeting between Mr. President and the industrial, the captains of industry in our country across sectors, who were hailing the reforms, who spoke to the stability that we're seeing across multiple sectors of the economy and the value of the currency and all of these factors. When you have all of these fundamentals now in place, the president looked at it and wisely said, now that the worst of the storm has now passed, we now need to do what we really need to do, which is regularize the electric power supply industry in such a way that those who can afford to pay what should be paid according to globally competitive rates for power production and distribution, that they should begin to pay those rates now, particularly given the fact that if they are using diesel power generation, they would be paying triple anyway. If you're getting between 20 and 24 hours of light per day powering your industry, your business, and your office, certainly you should be able to pay what you would pay in Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt, or any other modern economy in the world. And that is what Mr. President has said. And he believes that by shielding 85% of the electricity consuming population that he has done right by Nigerians, and he will only adjust the tariff affecting the masses of our people at a time when certainly the economy is in a much better place than it is right now. That is the compassion of our president.
All right. So with this recent increase, can there be and arrangements bordering on consumer credit, where consumers can use power and pay later.
Well, it's very timely that you raise this, because if you look at the fact that just this evening, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did approve the appointment of Engineer Uzoma Nwagba as the Chief Executive Officer of the new Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation. Essentially, this is a young man who studied at the Harvard Business School, who was a software engineer for Microsoft, leading teams, building software and programs for, enterprise software for emerging markets, around the world. And who most recently served as the chief operating officer of the Bank of Industry, that with that level of expertise across the technology sphere and the financial sphere, that he would be well positioned to ensure that the kind of technological sophistication that's going to be required with any consumer credit system that is now going to be established to ensure that every Nigerian, without any connections to a big man, without coming from a particular family or coming from a particular academic background or anything like that, that there is equal opportunity and equal access to a pool of trillions of naira of consumer credit to deal with not just things like electric power and other commodities, but to deal with housing construction and mortgages, so that our people can access affordable housing on an installmental basis instead of being forced to pay cash up front, or for automobile finance, ensuring that they can pay an affordable monthly payment according to their legitimate cash inflows on a monthly basis while they are using that car, in addition to loans and credit for paying medical bills, for other allied services. This is the future of the Nigerian economy. Right now, we currently have about 5% of our working population in the country accessing any form of consumer credit. If you look at economies even within the African continent, many of these economies are pushing 30, 40, and 50%. We believe that we have a long way to go, but we believe that we have the leadership in place, not just within the corporation now, but obviously with a financial engineer, a professional accountant as president, who understands business, who has implemented, consumer credit programs within Lagos State, for example, where Lagos State civil servants were provided an opportunity to pay on a monthly basis towards home ownership over the long term. That he can nationalize this, that he can bring this to the federal level in a way that every part of the country and every citizen of the country can partake in. So I want to be clear about how this is going to work. First of all, we are, over the course of the next 1 year, going to establish, in fact, it's actually a 2-year initial seed capital that we're looking at of 1 trillion naira. 100 billion naira will come from each year, 2024 financial year and 2025 financial year from the federal budget. Then within each of those years, we will also have another supplementation of about 300 billion naira coming from the Bank of Industry, in addition to other sources coming from the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority and other private sector investors, as well as traditional financial institutions. The banks we all know within the country are also going to be part of this program. We are working through the Central Bank of Nigeria, not going to, because we're already implementing this. The Central Bank of Nigeria is going to provide financial incentives to the deposit money banks in the country to steer capital away from non-labor intensive but capital intensive sectors such as oil and gas into the real sector. These are labor intensive, capital intensive sectors that deal with obviously agriculture, manufacturing, housing and construction, housing provision, automobile, production and the like. We want to make sure that we can free up trillions of naira for our people to be able to access, according to two major points of, two major source points. One is, we are going to be monitoring not salaries. You don't have to be working in a bank or a law firm or some established institution in order to benefit. This is going to be cash-based, not salary-based. So what that means is we are going to be able to say, look, bring your bank statements over the last 2 or 3 years. What is your aggregate cash inflow into your account? By that, we can look at the median and say, okay, this is your median inflow in terms of access to capital that you have as an individual. According to your kind of median cash inflow, we can now say that according to your cash inflow, you can access a loan of 5 million naira for a social housing project, for example, or 5 million naira for a vehicle, a tukumbo, or whatever the case may be, to ensure that you have that capital up front, paid to the automobile manufacturer or paid to the housing construction company up front, so that you can now pay according to that on a low to no interest loan, depending on what program is being tapped into. The second point, and this is very vital because this is similar to what we're doing with student loans, is we're using the NIN number. The NIN number to be able to track and create a new credit scoring system in the country so that all Nigerians with a NIN number and a BVN will actually have a credit score according to a history that they would have developed through their partnership.
Updates. But the crux of the matter has been that most Nigerians do not mind bearing the cost. But the major concern is, will the power be available for them to use? But let's quickly talk about Rivers politics. As a son of the soil, how disturbed are you about the political situation in Rivers State? What do you think is happening?
Well, very quickly, the removal of the subsidy is effectively to ensure that when Nigerians are actually paying for the power that they consume, according to globally competitive rates, what now happens is the distribution companies and the distribution companies will be making more money to pay the power generation companies so that they can invest in their infrastructure and expand their power generation capacity, meaning that you'll have more power in the country, getting to more homes in the country, meaning that power supply will improve as a result of the increase in the tariff. That answers that part of the question. Now onto the Rivers question. I think what Rivers people want is at the federal level and at the state level and at the local level. Every Rivers person simply wants leadership that is solely focused not on politics, not on antagonism, but focused on what is important to the Rivers people. Access to quality education, primary health and education facilities that are world class. Accessing, for example, micro, small, and medium scale enterprise support. Ensuring that the state assembly, for example, is not focused on stopping any executive from accessing a budget that they can use to fund their developmental programs for the benefit of the people, but that they're working closely with the governor to obviously fund the programs that are important to Rivers people. The governor equally has a responsibility to ensure that he is liaising effectively with the State House of Assembly and not playing politics with them. Not saying that he is, but he certainly can't afford to. And it's going to be important for all stakeholders, including the Honorable Minister of the FCT, to be willing to also sheath their swords and say, look, we have an election in 2027 where this battle can bear itself out. But we have a number of years before then. Let's be responsible. Let's ensure that the people of Rivers State don't suffer because you have these elephants fighting each other in public. We believe that Rivers people are brilliant people, they're dignified people, and they're not always represented that way by political leadership over the course of time. We believe that hopefully that the governor and the Honorable Minister of FCT would take a cue from Mr. President with respect to how he manages affairs over time in Lagos State, for example, and how he's managing affairs in Nigeria as president, as a cue to say governance comes first. Politics comes closer to the election. Let's abide by that for the sake of Rivers people.
All right, so but do you think the president needs to intervene one more time?
I believe that anyone who believes that by their actions, whether it's from the federal level or from the state level or from the legislative, branch in the state or to the executive branch in the state, that if they are banking on Mr. President taking sides in this matter, they are mistaken and they will be disappointed. The president will not do that. What he will do is ensure that everybody has what they need in order to work. And he's also going to ensure that any attempt to defund or frustrate the operation of the Rivers State government from conducting its affairs in a way that will benefit the Rivers people, that's obviously not going to be allowed by this president or anybody else. So I think there's a need for all stakeholders to understand that the president will not take sides and that they need to focus in on governance and delivering the dividends of democracy to the people of Rivers State. And that should be their only consideration until the lead up to 2027 when we can start talking about politics.
All right. Ajuri Ngelale, Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. Thank you so much for speaking with us on Politics Tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from get in touch with us on X at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke WO using the hashtag Politics Tonight. Also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Good night, everyone.
Five questions with Ini. Hi guys. Ini, your skin is really glowing. What beauty soap do you use?
It's glowing because it's healthy. I use a soap that keeps my skin soft and protected from germs.
But Ini, the beauty soaps I know don't give germ protection.
Dettol skincare does.
It combines Dettol's protection with argan oil to protect my skin. Gives me 2 times moisturization with a beautiful fragrance. Beautiful skin is germ-free skin.
Get in on the action with Betano, your exciting destination for sports betting. Enjoy an award-winning experience with amazing betting options, cash outs and missions, as well as other features. Join now and get a welcome bonus of up to 200,000 Naira. Betano.ng, the game starts now.
5 questions with Ini. Hi guys. Ini, your skin is really glowing. What beauty soap do you use?
It's glowing because it's healthy. I use a soap that keeps my skin soft and protected from germs.
But Ini, the beauty soaps I know don't give germ protection.
Dettol skincare does.
It combines Dettol's protection with argan oil to protect my skin. Gives me 2 times moisturization with a beautiful fragrance. Beautiful skin is germ-free skin.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. Today, there are many complex, boring, expensive, and useless exercise machines in the market. Or you pay over 400,000 Naira a year for gym membership and never go. ShopX TV is proud to introduce Total Crunch Evolution, the compact, versatile fitness solution that is perfect for you. With Total Crunch, you get a complete fitness workout in one machine. Say goodbye to ineffective and complicated exercise machines. Now, you have the power to transform your fitness journey and get the body you have always wanted right in the comfort of your own home. Total Crunch is the efficient and effective way to build muscle, tone and tighten your legs, shape your back and pectorals, while strengthening your core and defining your abs. Now that's totally effective to get the body you want. With Total Crunch, your whole body works out at the same time. Only Total Crunch can put your whole body in motion as you burn calories and lose weight. Just one fitness routine a week will achieve serious results in 4 weeks.
Total Crunch Evolution has enhanced the way I work out and the results I achieve. It's not just a fitness equipment, it's a life changer. This versatile, time-saving machine is perfect for anyone looking to lose weight or stay in shape. Trust me, this is a game changer you've been waiting for.
With my busy schedule, finding time to work out and stay in shape has always been a challenge until I discovered the Total Crunch Evolution. It's a lifesaver.
Traditional exercise equipment is large, complex, takes up so much space in your home, and you could be paying up to 400,000 Naira for annual gym fees. Get the Total Crunch Evolution, the 2-in-1 fitness solution to save the cost and transform your body from the convenience of your home. Similar equipment costs 300,000 Naira, but you can get the Total Crunch Evolution for not 300,000 Naira, not even 200,000 Naira. Order right now and get your Total Crunch Evolution for just 179,950 Naira only. And that's not all. You can get our Total Crunch Evolution in 2 easy payments of 89,975.
At independence, Nigeria's forest cover was 35%, but currently stands at 3%, indicating that the forest has been destroyed. The federal government needs to fulfill its promise to return the country's depleted forest cover to 25%. And that's according to Nigerian diplomat and former Minister of Petroleum, Philip Asiodu. This and more will be our focus in this week's edition of Green Angle. Welcome. I am Esther Mokwariola. And before we begin, let's bring you updates